I know that all things that are were first in God. In this fourth collection, I can no longer hide behind a conversation. It has to be a statement. Fear of God is not, it's not a streetwear brand. It's not a men's contemporary or a designer brand or even a Christian clothing line for that matter. It's denim, it's fabrics, it's nylon, it's bombers. But it's his hand and it's his grace that are on it. This is God's brand. I had praying parents that covered me since I was a kid. And this is the product of their obedience.
Can y'all give it up for Jerry Lorenzo, who literally woke up like this. The unofficial coolest guy I've ever seen in my life. Most people have to try, but you literally were graced by God just to wake up cooler than everybody. Your brand, you're humble, you carry it well. I'll let everybody know, fear of God has changed the game. I like to describe you as somebody where the grace of God kicked the door open in the fashion industry, and you walk right in and took the whole building. And if you think about your brand and what's going on with it and how many people are kind of being inspired, and you know, Justin Bieber obviously picked up the stuff on the tour. You can't get your stuff anywhere. It's like released and then it's gone. It's like God's grace has breathed on this. Did you ever think, coming from where you came from, and you've always been a Christian, right? Never smoked, never drank, never sinned. Did you ever think that God's grace would bring you here?
I never thought that God's grace would bring me here through this platform of clothing, but I always felt a heavy responsibility to live unashamed. And whether that platform was clothing, whether that was sports or baseball, I grew up in a baseball family, I knew that my responsibility was to let his light shine through everything that I touch.
You know, I think oftentimes in Christendom, we leave some areas or some spheres, shout out to Joel LaBelle for this whole idea, by the way. We leave some lanes of life unoccupied or left for dead. Some people would say the fashion industry, it's the devil's, it's dark, we stay away from that. Men like you, maybe some dreamers out here, believe that there is no street in this world that we should not be occupying with the light of the gospel. Now, you are a dad, an amazing husband, have a phenomenal family, and you love Jesus with all your heart. Is it possible to keep your soul and to keep your faith in that dark world? Is it possible?
I mean, it's impossible not to. You know, I mean, I tried it without God being the head, and nearly lost all the phenomenal things you just mentioned that I have in my life. And you know, fear of God is not, it's not a clothing brand. It's a conviction. You know, it's an idea, and that conviction can live through furniture. It can live through whatever it is we can think up. You know, I think fashion just happens to be the platform for us to tell the story of God's grace. And you know, when I say, hey, this is God's brand, I'm not saying that in a way of boastful or this brand is more important than anything. Hebrews 3:4 says that, you know, for every house has a builder, but the creator of all things is God. So if you have a brand, then that's God's too, you know? And I'm just gonna give him the glory for what he's given me. And whether that comes through, you know, whether that comes through jeans or footwear, whatever it is, whatever it may be, I know what my talents are. I know what my gifts are. But even more than that, I know where God meets me to help these things come to life. And I know that it's impossible without him. So to do anything without him just doesn't even, I can't even comprehend it.
Phenomenal answer. After this is over, can I have your bandana?
Actually, this is vintage, and no, you cannot have this.
All right, thanks for coming out. What's it like when you see somebody with your stuff on, like your clothes? You see somebody in the street with your shoes. Like, what's that feeling like? I've always wondered that. Like, when you're a designer, you pour your heart and soul into this, and you're walking around, you see somebody. Do you always hug them? Like, I would. I'd be like, friends,
I'm like, I mean, sometimes I kind of want to fix it a little bit, like, maybe you should, not really wearing it right. Let me, at first it was like super, like it's this really weird feeling of just humbleness of like how good God is. And it's hard to really explain. And then after you get used to it and you start walking in harmony with God, it's just like a dance. It's like a rhythm. It's like, okay, God, I know you gave me that. I see it. Okay. What's next? It's like you start to think of things and you already know what it's going to do in the market. When he puts these, I hate to say ideas, or he just puts these things inside of you. Everything that I do with Fear of God is we borrow from the past. This is just my favorite pair of Levi's with the most perfect holes and distressing ever. Like, how do I modernize that? This is just a army boot you've seen, but how do I make that?
Kind of not. There's suede awesomeness, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so I don't want to feel like I'm putting all these brand new ideas out and I'm so conceptual, because that's not who I am, and that's, I'm not trying to do this for that type of glory.
It's awesome. You're in this world where, by the grace of God, you've been in some circles where I'll be surprised if any other Christians set foot in those rooms with some of these people that, this brand has, I guess, opened up doors in that regard. What's it like out there? Are people, are they open? Are they closed? Do you find you get around people and there's avenues to share the gospel? What's that like? Because a lot of people would see the Instagram of what your life is like, but we all know there's something behind that. There's been a road there. What's it really like when you get to a place where the fashion world's broken, people are hurting? What do you see when you get in there? Do you see people that are open?
I think everybody's open, and I think that's why the responsibility is so heavy. It's so heavy. When I first started, and I grew up in a Christian home, and I had these Christian beliefs, and I wanted to do something, and I felt it would be so empty to make cool clothes for the sake of just making cool clothes, and I wanted to give you something that would feed you on a higher level than just feeling good that you got some dope gear on. And even though I had that belief, I didn't have that like conviction. And it wasn't even really until recently when I totally came to the end of myself and realized that there's no way I can do this without God. And I came to the like end like this close, like where it was like, wow, like stop promoting yourself. Stop. No one cares about Jerry Lorenzo. Let me open the doors for you. Focus on me. And when I began to like focus on him, it's like all these things just kind of like fell my way. And I don't want to say that and for you to get confused that worldly success somehow equals significance. Because the greatest And the greatest of these is a servant, and the greatest of these is a servant. And so in what Brant was talking about, the most important sphere in the kingdom, and the kingdom sphere, what are you doing here that is impacting the kingdom? What are you doing for the least of these? And so I don't want to, hey, his life is good, his brand is doing good, and he loves God, and that's obvious because his brand is good, but if I can't sell another pair of jeans tomorrow, I don't want that to affect how I praise God,
You're a preacher too. Believe it or not, you have some things in common with my pastor, Brian Houston. Swagger, style, and the fact that, Brian's always refused to choose conformity, and he's rejected it and always gone with creativity. Because sometimes when you get successful or you get momentum, much like Judah spoke about, safety is a temptation. You've always just gone the other way. Even if you get some rhythm or something gets traction, you're like, that's cool, but I don't want to just do what's been done. I want to keep stepping out in faith. How do you do that? Because it would be so easy to settle and almost sell out because you've won, but you are still believing for more. How do you keep that kind of faith?
Man, I think I'm just blessed, man. I was a stock boy at Diesel. I wasn't cool enough to work on the sales floor.
I find that hard to believe.
Man, that's the reality. I didn't have the swag they were looking for, and I came into fashion with the ignorance. I didn't realize that I had to release collections on calendar. I just put it out when it was ready. So, it's like,
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, this is my proposition. This is what I have to offer, and I think there's been some ignorance of the industry, which has enabled me to be free within it, and the convictions that I have that, with a Christ-centered team, with Christ being the head, the brand communication is Christ-centered. I got my product manager here is a believer. So once all those things are in line, that's what your focus is on. And so I think by default, maybe we're opening new doors and doing new things and not conforming, but that's just because we're staying in line and moving instinctually and through our convictions, and not by, a fashion calendar that is trying to control you.
Let's leave with this. Everybody has a theme to their life, whether they like it or not, or whether it's intentional or not. As Christians, we can choose it. What's your theme? Is your anchor. The anchor is your soul. The scripture, a thought. How do you define what represents who you are?
Man, I think, I can't think of his name, but the guy that was here before, I was a party promoter in LA, had my battles with alcohol, had my battles with everything else that comes with that. My theme is that I want my life to be what impacts people. And I'm fearful that my legacy could be in something as material as cool shoes and denim. I want my life to be what encourages you to live like Jesus, what encourages you to seek him every day, the way that I love my wife, the way that I love my kids, the way that I live my life. And so, right now I want to live for him, and I could care less about fashion. And the only thing I care about is the kingdom, and that's the only sphere that is important to me.
We're proud of you. We're proud of what God's doing with you, and the best is yet to come, no doubt. Jerry Lorenzo, ladies and gentlemen.